Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And by Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.
From Mansur's on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge, we're out to lunch with editor of the Baton Rouge Business Report, Stephanie Riegel. It's business, Baton Rouge style.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Riegel. Welcome to Out to Lunch. Though South Louisiana doesn't usually get high points for being home to IT and biotech talent, there are lots of startups you've probably never heard of that are turning heads around the country and beyond, doing things to improve everything from coming up with better ways for police officers to make arrests in the field to getting you to ingest the fresh produce that's grown in the fields. Joining me today is Casey Roussel, Executive Vice President of Gvle, a company that's revolutionizing the way law enforcement officers do their jobs. Specifically, Gvle has created software that streamlines the way officers obtain warrants in the field by enabling them to complete the entire warrant process electronically without ever having to leave the scene of a crime. The electronic warrant system allows officers to write a bulletin, send it to a judge at the push of a button. The judge then receives an email alerting him that there's a warrant to review, which he can sign or revise and send back all within a matter of minutes. Gvle has been around since 2009, and in just a few short years, many law enforcement agencies have begun to use the software, including the Louisiana State Police, the LSU Police, and the New Orleans Police Department, just to name a few. Casey, it is such a cool story. Thanks for joining me today on Out to Lunch.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Also at the table with me and Casey is Dale Pfost, CEO of Microbiome Therapuetics, a biotech company that is developing and marketing therapies that help keep you healthy by interacting with the GI, or gastrointestinal, microbiome. Growing research suggests that a variety of conditions are impacted by the health of your GI microbiome. And the flagship product of Dale's company seeks to do just that. It's called Biome Bliss, and it's a berry-flavored prebiotic blend that is made into a drink or a spread. It can be made into lots of food products and is intended to be an addition just to your daily eating routine. Think of Biome Bliss as a way to make sure that you have the proper amounts of fruits and vegetables that you should every day, but with fewer calories. Dale is a native of Silicon Valley who has had success with startups like this before. His first biotech company in graduate school was acquired by SmithKline Beecham, now GSK. Dale, it's a pleasure to have you here on Out to Lunch today.
Thank you for having me.
And you brought some wonderful treats that we can try. Your Biome Bliss drink.
Ready to enjoy it.
And all right, well, you'll have to tell us all about it in a minute. But Casey, let me go back to Gvle for a minute because you have extensive experience in the field of process automation and data analytics, two areas that are crucial for the success of software like Gvle. How does the system work?
It's pretty simple, actually. The goal behind what we tried to accomplish is that we saw and found through meeting with sheriffs back in the early 2000s was how much time was wasted by officers simply sitting in a car and trying to find judges, whether it was sitting in traffic or just getting from office to courthouse and then waiting for the judge and then getting all the way back to the office. And it was hours of time. So we thought that, gosh, there's got to be a better way to do this. So we met with the sheriffs, figured out their workflow and processes. At that time, there was no laws here in Louisiana to allow the electronic signing of court documents. So we had to meet with the legislature, present what the idea and concept was, and thankfully it passed through with full support. So we kicked it off in, I think, September of 2009 and really never looked back.
Wow. So let's back up just a step and explain, like, what kinds of things would an officer have to wait on approval for if he was out in the field trying to arrest somebody or?
Yes, good question. So if an officer's in the field and they determine, okay, I need to make an arrest or I need to search a particular place, whether it's car, person, house, they would then have to get in their car, go back to their office, get to their office, type up the entire warrant, print it out, go find the judge, whether it be at the courthouse or at a judge's house if it's after hours, explain everything to the judge, have the judge sign it, go back to the office, print copies, make copies, then go to the scene to execute that warrant.
Wow.
So it was
hours and hours.
And depend. So you get in rural areas where they may have had to drive an hour and a half to get to the judge if it's after hours in a house. Like in New Orleans, coming from New Orleans east during traffic hour, even though it's it's all in New Orleans. It could take them an hour to get there and back one way. So we eliminated all that to now it's all cloud-based. They can sit in front of a scene on their laptop, and we reduced the process down to an average of 16 minutes to do it. So not only have we reduced the time, but the hours spent on overtime and the wear and tear on vehicles. So all of that's been reduced down for the officers.
And it's all done on a phone, on a pad, any sort of mobile device,
it's
anything.
it's all encrypted into the cloud environment, so it's extremely secure, and judges can sign warrants from anywhere in the world as long as they have internet access, and same with officers, as long as they have internet access. There's no special hardware or anything to buy to do it. They can do it from any internet-enabled device.
So many cool questions that I want to ask you. But Dale, your story begs so many questions as well. And I want to kind of back up and start because I referenced in my little introduction to you the microbiome and also prebiotics. And those are two kind of key terms for your product, and people may not be familiar with those. So when we talk about a microbiome, what are we talking about?
Okay, the microbiome is one of the most exciting areas in the life sciences today, and it's really going to be a wellspring of breakthroughs for treating disease. And what the epiphany was collectively of biologists was that the role of the bacteria in our lower GI, our large intestines primarily, but also in other places in our body, the role of bacteria and other microorganisms is integral to our health. So there are ways that it can go right, and as you might expect, there are ways that it can go wrong. And so the field of the microbiome is leading to new insights into disease process. And what can go wrong with your microbiome goes to the subject of prebiotics. So you've heard of probiotics. Probiotics are taking fermented food and
like yogurt, right?
Yogurt is a
Everybody talks
fermented,
about, okay.
And there's sauerkraut and things like that. And people have taken those bacteria and made them into pills also. Well, in our bodies there are about 800 different species of bacteria living, and there are about 40 or 50 trillion of them living in our lower GI.
Wow.
And so what can go wrong is that you can get whole elements of that group of bacteria to be missing, and that's called dysbiosis. And when you have hundreds of different species of bacteria that are decimated, they're not doing what they would normally do. So taking probiotics might help some people some of the time, but what really has gone wrong is that people aren't feeding their microbiome. And when you don't feed the microbiome, they get even, or they get sick. And so that's sort of the setup for what our product Biome Bliss is all about.
So Biome Bliss, it's a powder. It comes in a powder form, and it's a blend of these so nutrients, these prebiotics?
Yeah, so what we've done is taken the natural prebiotics. These are fermentable fibers out of natural food. And so we all should be eating 10 or 12 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. And many of us don't do that. It takes a big pile of fruits and vegetables and 380 calories of those fruits and vegetables in one serving of Biome Bliss. What we've done is taken the sugar out, the simple carbs out, and left the fermentable fiber, the prebiotics, that what your microbiome is looking for. And we've rendered that in the form of a very easy to drink product. It's very flavorful. So if a kid, for example, and maybe a 40-year-old kid isn't eating their fruits and vegetables, this is a really easy way to get them to add on the better part of their diet. Sometimes we think about diets as being the guilt of the bad things that we're eating, and that's certainly true. But this is really focusing on the good things that people aren't eating. And this is much easier to add this good part back into people's diets. And once your microbiome gets back on the road, then it starts providing feedback to your brain and other aspects of your physiology.
Now, you all launched this product very recently?
Yes, we just launched it this spring, and we're going on social media and Amazon and our website. And if you Google on microbiome, you'll find so many subjects that are connecting to it. So people are recognizing that the microbiome is a breakthrough subject, and this is a product that's really a premier microbiome product.
This is a great story. Okay, I have a lot of follow-up questions for you, but speaking of launching, Casey, you all launched your product 9 years ago. You all have been around a long time. How did you get the local governments, the state government on board? What was their incentive to want to do that? And you had to change laws, you said, to enable this?
It's been very unique, especially moving outside of Louisiana to additional states to see how things are done different. But the real incentive for law enforcement was, one, the amount of money and time was being saved, but also officer safety. Because a lot of things we didn't realize was, okay, while that officer was traveling back and forth to the judge, well, there was other officers sitting on a particular house, watching it, surveying it, and it's easy to see a police car sitting outside of a house. One of the interesting stories when we first started, we had an agency call us where they found a house that they were ready to go and do a search warrant on. They were able to use our system. They got the warrant back, I think it was like 18 minutes at the time, and they made the search, they made the arrest, but when they came into the house, it was a group of individuals, all with weapons, and they were ready and planning to go hit a drugstore. And the officers called us because they said, if we'd have did it the old way, we wouldn't have got there in time and someone would have likely been killed. So we started seeing, okay, it's not just about money, it's about safety, it's about public safety. So the law enforcement had a real incentive to, get behind it. And from the judge side, they don't have officers beating on their doors in the middle of the night, waking up their spouses and their families. And they saw the benefit as well to do their job and get the information back to the officer. And the third thing was we had a big focus on protecting the constitutional rights of the people. So our system tracks every single thing that the officers do, from a timeline of everything that's happening, so there can't be any accusation of, hey, did they make the search before they had the warrant or anything like that. It kind of protects us both sides of the equation.
So do you have to get individual law enforcement agencies to sign on and buy the software? Is it a parish or county by county thing?
It's mostly done by districts because what's unique about ours that's difficult to sell is we have to have both law enforcement and the courts on. If the courts don't want to participate, it's really a no-go. So we
need like the 19th Judicial District to participate.
Yes,
for
we need the court to participate in order to get the law enforcement on board. So we would go and sell both sides, both the law enforcement and the court, and saying, hey, look, this is what we're trying to do. And it's easier for us now because we have working model that works and the results to prove the concept of how it's helping. So it's easier now, but we need both sides of the equation. And then we add the clerk of court, the district attorney's office, and all the different institutions or agencies to streamline the process.
And then you access their databases, or you automate their databases and link them all together, basically?
Well, for Cloud Gvle, everything is stored in our databases. So we protect it all in a secure environment in the cloud, and then we'll push the data back to the agency. So if they want access to their data, it's their data, we'll send it back to them for them to have locally, but everything is secured and protected inside of our databases.
Fantastic. Who developed your software?
We built it internally. We have our full software development team that we built it and we maintain it. So it's, Cloud Gvle is probably about 20% of what we do as a company. So we build and automate things for private sector businesses. So Cloud Gvle is really easy for us because, our whole team is here. We do it all in-house.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Stephanie Regal. I'm talking to Casey Roussel of Cloud Gvle and Dale Post of Biome Bliss. We'll be right back after this very short break. You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Stephanie Regal. I'm talking to Casey Roussel of Cloud Gvle and Dale Post of Biome Bliss. Dale, who developed Biome Bliss? Did you have a team of scientists? Was it you and a couple of others? And where did you test it? Where are your labs?
Yeah, it was an interesting story how it came together. It was three co-founders of the company, and one is Dr. Mark Hyman, who is from Louisiana, and he had worked at Eli Lilly for some 25 years as the chief science officer for drug discovery for their obesity drugs. Mm-hmm. And he had started to see confounding variables in some of his experiments that he could only explain by invoking a role for the bacteria in the lower GI. So the functionality wasn't the drug acting in the system, in the bloodstream, so to speak, but actually the drug was working in the intestines, in the interluminal cavity of where the stuff is being digested. And so he had some ideas about how you could modulate or modify that process for improving health. The other co-founder is John Elstrott, who is also from Louisiana, and who's a professor at Tulane, now retired, and he was the chairman of Whole Foods. Now also
and an alum of
retired.
This show. We had him on before.
Yeah, and so he had this wealth of experience in a whole series of emerging high-tech food companies, and including White Wave, the company that makes Silk, the soy milk company, and several others, including Gvle, which is a probiotic company. So he was very familiar with the genre of company. My background is as a CEO of biotechnology companies, and so getting complicated science and explaining it and raising money for the companies, and then getting to the point of going public or to a trade sale. And the microbiome was just right up my alley. I just fell in love with the field of the microbiome, as now thousands of people have. And so we got together, and Mark Hyman was the one that invented the product along with a colleague, Justin Pino. And they got together and conceptualized the product. And what's important is that this has been tested in the clinic. And we're very fortunate here to be very close to the Pennington Biomedical Research Center, which is one of the world's and certainly the country's leading research institutes in the field of nutrition. Nutritional science is a very hard form of science, and what Pennington does is combine the basic science along with the clinical science, and so we did 2 clinical trials.
And what did the trials show? I mean, how did you measure better health?
Yeah, so first of all,
Or was it weight loss, or what was it?
Yeah, so these trials were done at the same rigor as if it was a pharmaceutical, even though we're talking about extracts from foods. So that standard is a double-blinded, placebo-controlled, randomized trial. That's the real deal. So the trial was provided to individuals with high BMI, many of which were pre-diabetic, and they were on the product for about 4 weeks. And at the end of that period, and also some were on placebo, they were given various tests. And one of them is a so-called oral glucose tolerance test. So if you eat a big piece of pecan pie, what's going to happen to your bloodstream in the next couple of hours is the blood sugar is going to go blasting into the roof and then coming down over a period of a couple of hours. And when you do that several times a day for a year in and year out, that's what wears your system down. It can lead to problems. And so what we found was with our product, if people had been taking Biome Bliss for the weeks leading up to it, it changed the glycemic response to that oral glucose tolerance test. It was as if all the foods you ate were decreased in the glycemic response. That's a very good thing. That was the first finding. The other 2 findings were, I think, equally important. GI health, so people that had irregularity, it improved that. And my favorite is satiety. It basically cuts your hunger. And so, and the reason why that is a fascinating part of the story of the microbiome. And it has to do with how the microbiome is actually communicating with us.
Okay.
It communicates with our brain.
So it actually curbs hunger and therefore helps you maintain healthy weight or maybe even lose weight.
Well, it would help you maintain a diet. And so if you're on a supervised diet, a lot of people have been familiar with the yo-yo diets. And what this does, it over a period of about 20 hours after you've eaten a meal that has these fermentable fibers in them, such as in Biome Bliss, it ferments and it creates molecules in your large intestines that they come by the name of short-chain fatty acids, and they're really good things. When you don't eat good fruit and vegetables, you don't get a lot of short-chain fatty acids, and that leads to a problem. When you do have short-chain fatty acids produced, as will happen in the case of Biome Bliss, there's other cells in your lower GI that then absorb those short-chain fatty acids and produce hormones. One of those hormones is a satiety hormone. It tells your brain you've had enough to eat. It may take 10 or 12 hours for that signal to get there. So if you load up on 2 servings of Biome Bliss for a couple of days and that kicks in and you start to feel like that pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream is not a single serving anymore.
I'm sold. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So how do you all market your respective products? Sell and market and position it out there?
The Gvle product is really market specific, where we market directly to law enforcement agencies and to the courts. It is because it's a very specific market on how. So we'll go to different trade shows or conventions for law enforcement, but most of what we do is direct outreach, where we'll set up appointments and go meet with the key decision makers for the law enforcement agencies in the courts and show them the product, and that's where it goes from there. So it's
and you have a reputation now, I guess, and enough penetration to...
Yeah, absolutely. We're finally to the point where people are calling us as much as we're calling them. So that's really good because people are hearing the story and they're hearing about the success we're having with the product.
How many markets are you in?
We're in 5 states now.
Okay.
So which is pretty amazing considering the challenges of going from state to state in this market, because each state kind of does things a little bit different and with different laws. So we've been fortunate, and it's a good time for the product.
Dale, what about y'all? You mentioned that you're selling this online. But are you going through also dealers or nutritional supplement places or doctors' offices? Or
There are really two main routes right now for us to get to the marketplace. One is through our online e-commerce. So BiomeBliss.com is the name of the website, and also through Amazon. So that's the e-commerce side of things. And then we have a series of ambassadors and clinics. It's important for a product like this that has, as sort of given you a hint of, it's got sort of a depth to it. It's sort of simple on one hand, but there's a depth to the science behind it. And so it's good to have registered dietitians, nurse practitioners, also naturopathic physicians and MDs be aware of the science behind the product, because to the extent that they're aware of that science and appreciate it, then they understand the legitimacy of it.
what kind of competition is there for your respective products?
For us, not very much. There's a couple state-sponsored plans where the states are trying to do it internally to do it, but we were the first one to do it privately, and we're the largest one in the country at the moment.
Really?
For it. So and it all started here in Louisiana. So I mean, there's some small, I don't want to say mom and pop, but people that are trying to do it internally at agencies, but really, product to product, there's really not any competition.
Well, that's a good position to be in, I suppose.
And it's
Why aren't you in all 50 states if you're the only ones doing it?
one, it's getting, unfortunately, sometimes politicians to agree to make changes and do things a different way and look at it. We are dealing with government, so a lot of times it's all right, who's going to fund it, the initiative on it. And we've taken the stance because it's only part of what we do. We've sort of kind of reduced the cost of it as enough for us to keep investing in the product and keep growing and adding features for them, with it. So we've made it as cost effective as we can for agencies, but it's just, the story of dealing with government and going and getting the sheriff on board or the PD, then going to the courts, and it's just a hard sale process. And I think that's why a lot of people haven't got into it, because one, there's not massive amounts of profits in it with it, but we look at it as
For the user.
yes, so we're looking at it as more as kind of our civil duty, to give these tools and benefits to our law enforcement agencies. With it, it's just a long sale process.
Dale, what about Biome Bliss? Is there any competition in this prebiotic?
Well, people
Arena?
frequently confuse it with probiotics, so
Sure.
we help clarify that. And there are some other prebiotics out there where most prebiotics today are simple fiber products, and that can range all the way from things like inulin that ferment rather quickly. And so if you take 10 grams of inulin, it'll be an interesting evening of flatulence. So not necessarily a good thing. And so what we've been is very sort of clever in the design was to blend a series of prebiotics together. And one of them is an interesting ingredient. It's derived from many colored fruits, but ours is from blueberries. And so we desugarize, that's not a technical term, take the sugar out of blueberries and get the polyphenols. And the polyphenols are temperature sensitive, so you have to go through that very carefully. So this is why people say red wine is healthy for you.
Yeah.
It's not the alcohol.
It's
No,
the
no,
polyphenols.
it's the polyphenols.
Okay.
And so what the polyphenols are is they're also prebiotic. So as your bacteria are converting those fibers from fiber into other stuff, the other stuff that you want more of is short-chain fatty acids, and what you don't want more of is just gas.
Right.
And so the polyphenols are used by a set of bacteria along with the hydrogen gas that otherwise would be produced. It gobbles up the hydrogen gas and makes more short-chain fatty acids. So it sort of is a way of diverting the biosynthetic machinery of the bacteria down there to producing more of what you really want. And so there's no competitive products that I know of that sort of have that thoughtfulness behind it. And so therefore we think ours is probably the most effective in
Is
terms
unique in that way. What are your long-term growth plans for your two companies?
For this product, it's obviously to try to get it in as many states and many agencies, because there's so much potential outside of just the warrants with data sharing and some of the new technologies that are coming out that's far beyond just warrants, but how it integrates with that. So our goal is to continue pushing the boundary on what the technology is capable of doing, with the goal of, one, making our law enforcement agencies more efficient, saving taxpayer dollars and using that money in other locations where letting the technology do the work instead of man hours and paper. So that's our goal, is just to continue pushing along and creating new products and new features to the existing products.
Are there sister products to Gvle or sister companies under your corporate umbrella that do
Yes,
related law
we've
enforcement?
got some pretty good strategic partners that we're working on new technologies, whether it's with crime cameras and data analytics. A big part of what we do as a company is data analytics for both the private and public sectors. So allowing the technology to take the data of law enforcement to start doing like predictive analysis to try to figure out what's causing crime problems in certain particular areas, what times of the day, what times of the month, year that are causing these situations. And okay, how can you use technology of crime cameras to let the software, for example, automatically recognize that someone pulls a gun, and the software automatically alerts local cops that, hey, someone just pulled a gun in the French Quarter on this street, and it's all automated to do it. So it's looking at those and partnering with the companies that have the technology where we all work together and deliver that solution.
Interesting. And Dale, what about, y'all are just starting, but I know you must have an exit strategy.
Sure.
You want to go public?
We're working with a local marketing group called Zender Communications. They've been doing a fantastic job of getting our word out and getting influencers, which is the media means of getting out to the public with our message. So they've been doing a great job for us. And there's sort of a branch point in our future. Maybe it's a year out, maybe it's 4 years out, somewhere in between those two probably, whereby we choose to carry on building the brand, which is what's done in the food industry, such that the brand becomes increasingly valuable. Right now what we have is a valuable brand, but a very valuable product. And there's a patent behind the product.
Well, can we sample this before we go?
Here's
this
a
lovely,
good,
beautiful
good
purple
taste
drink. Cheers.
Cheers.
And should you have this before your meal, or with, or after, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter. It is.
All right, let's see. It's very delicious. Very delicious. Nice fruity flavor, not too sweet.
I could definitely drink this.
We could definitely drink this every day. Dale Pfost and Casey Roussel, y'all have wonderful stories to share, and it's so exciting that you all are bringing so much to the local marketplace. Thanks for telling us your stories and taking time to be with us today on Out to Lunch.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure being here.
My guests today on Out to Lunch have been Casey Roussel of Gvle and Dale Pfost of Biome Bliss. You can find out more about Gvle and Biome Bliss by going to our website, itsbatonrouge.la. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle. Our associate producer is Peter Raschuti, and our Baton Rouge business consultants are Charlie D'Agostino and Ann Edelman. If you want to know what we all look like, you can find photos from this show on our website, itsbatonrouge.la, and on our It's Baton Rouge Facebook page. These photos were taken by Carrie Hosford. You can find more of Carrie's photos at carriehosford.com. You can hear this show and past episodes of Out to Lunch wherever you get podcasts and at itsbatonrouge.la. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsbatonrouge.la and WRKF 89.3 FM. I'm Stephanie Riegel. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again next week around the table here at Mansur's for more business Baton Rouge style on Out to Lunch.
Out to Lunch Baton Rouge is recorded live over lunch at Mansur's on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge. Mansur's is open for lunch daily 11 to 2, for dinner nightly, and for brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And by Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.